Hi, and welcome to It's the Heart's Work, People, Passion, and Purpose podcast. And I'm your host, Terry Ross. Our mission is to help people live the extraordinary life that they dream of. We have our guest back with us today, Demetrius Evans from Sudden Impact ICU. We're excited to have Demetrius back with us. We had a great conversation the last time. Demetrius, how are you doing?
How you doing this evening, Terry?
All is well, all is well. How's everything going with you?
Man, we are a little under the weather up here, but everything is going well. Despite the tragedies that we see going on and things that we see our daily lives experience in society, that's very troublesome. But other than that, for personally, everything's going okay for myself here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our hearts have to go out to the families in Texas and just the families in Buffalo and everywhere where we're having these huge tragedies because it's senseless and we don't understand, but our hearts go out to the families, and we're going to continue to vibrate in love and vibrate in peace, and hopefully that we can help make it a better place by being an example.
That is correct.
Absolutely. So tell me about some of the response that you got from our last interview. Tell me, from some of the people that saw the interview on YouTube and some of your friends that you shared it with, what was the response?
Response was, it was basically about time. Now, when you're going to open up, and this actually has led on to some other things that I got going on up here. So this was a good inspirational start platform. Just that discussion that we were in, because it brought to light just the ceremony we just had up at SSD. In congratulations to just the effort for these kids before the incidents that we see going on. So every day thought is about these kids. So it's hard to even think about self when we see so much going on out here, and wishing that we can just do so much more to impact and help trying to stop this madness that we see. It's hard to even talk about what's self doing, because that's overwhelming right there too.
Absolutely. And the fact that you said that the people who know you best, they said it's about time. What it is about your story that they think will inspire others?
Just to continue push from, you have to understand that I know individuals that have known me for just young men that are now at age 35 and 36 and 37. Just remember just this same little effort back when they were 16 or 17. Even though right now I'm still dealing with the juveniles, but that's at my job. But the platform is just not at my job, but in the society, in the streets, the little brothers out here that we deal with. It's being impression every moment that we get the opportunity to make an impression upon them. Just doing the right thing, whatever it is, doing the right thing.
Absolutely. So I want to pick up where we left off the last time.
Yes.
And you talked about one of the reasons that the people at the Juvenile Detention Center that you were in, one of the reasons that they believed in you was because that you were one of the youngest children, or the youngest child to ever come there.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And how old were you?
The first time I entered there, I was 7 years of age.
7 years of age. 7 years of age. Since you've been working there, how young have you seen children come through?
The youngest one may have been, I have been 11, 12.
11, 12.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was happening in your world at 7 that not necessarily what happened that you went there, but what was going on in your life at 7 years old?
At 7, at that particular time, I recall my first few times being taken to the center was for runaway. So they would catch me out beyond curfew, somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. And first few times they would call my mother But after the third, fourth, fifth time, they started taking me down to the juvenile center. And that's what the pattern initially began for runaway. Ran away, run away from my house. In particular, I just remember a lot was about looking for a father, looking for my father in particular, looking for my father. Because I think at that age, I had just reached the point with my brothers and sisters knowing who their fathers were and knowing who my little sister's fathers was and not knowing who my father was, even though my mother had a boyfriend. And then I even went to him and asked him, "Were you my father?" Because everybody's got a daddy. And I remember that day, he like, "Nah, man." I think that was real impacting. It just sent me, along with some other stuff I was doing. I was already kind of discombobulated by, we had just moved out of St. Louis County school district, coming from a city school district. And that transformation was kind of major to me. And then one thing led to another thing, and led to another thing.
Well, I think what was something impactful that you just said is looking for a father.
Yeah, I'm looking for my father.
Yes, looking for your father. And I think most children, I was recently watching a video on Instagram where this young lady was walking out of the school and she hadn't seen her father since she was about 2, and I think she was about 13. And how she just ran and jumped in his arms and screamed. And I thought, all of that built-in passion, where has it been for those other 11 years? And how was it revealing itself? And I just think that the fact that you said you left home looking for your father, as you corrected me, said my father. Yeah. What void were you feeling at the time, other than the fact that your siblings knew their father? What do you think were you looking for at the time?
I was looking for my male figure, kind of like my mother boyfriend. Him and my brother was like 7 years older than myself, and it was this guy named Glenn. So he kind of, my brother was a teenager, so they're putting him at a teenager at this particular time, and so he got a lot of attention. So me, I don't know, school was one thing, and then the household was another thing. Hearing the fussing, my mother now, and my sisters, a lot of it just kind of, I had to go. I just took off, started running away, because I had seen my brother run away before. He'd run to my grandparents' house, and that's where I used to try to run to. Because
so you were running to your grandparents' house?
Trying to, because my story was like, when I was born, my mother had 3 other kids, and she had just got a job at Southwestern Bell. And so same year I was born. So my great grandparents, I don't know my grandparents, but my great grandparents, which were her grandparents, they kind of took me to rear, because the other ones were in school. And my earliest memories were with them. So my grandfather was the guy that had the lock on me. That was my everything right there. And then tragically, he died when I was like 5 years old. And then I transferred to another school right after he passed away. That was in the county, a couple of years later. And it was on. It was on. And when he was gone, I was on something else.
So your first encounters with juvenile detention was basically just out after curfew, not doing anything necessarily wrong, just doing something wrong because you were out after curfew, but you weren't into anything other than out after curfew.
Oh yeah, I was doing things. I was skipping school, running into stores, grabbing bottles and taking them back to the store and cashing them in, the soda bottles. So I sneak in the store. That'd be my hustle. Skip school and go sneak in the store and fill my basket up with a bunch of bottles, and then go out the back and come back in the front and change it back in and get the little cash, and then go into another grocery store. And then that led to another thing. I was a little money hustler to get it. Yeah.
So you were
I was mischievous.
A young entrepreneur making things happen.
Yeah.
So what about school that didn't keep you there? What was it about school that just didn't hold you?
I think that particular school, I don't know why I always remember this, was the first day of school, me and this guy, this is how much I remember. This is, I was second grade, and me and this guy named Michael Wright. He was from Detroit, Michigan. We started school like 2 weeks late, and this was a county school. And when the teacher introduced us to class, she introduced me and him to the classroom as bad boys because we were from the city. And that's something I always remember because that land. And me and him we ended up being renegades of the classroom. The little white kids were just like scared of us or whatever. Next thing you know, they come giving us their little lunches, talking about, can you have that black person right there? Because there wasn't too many blacks up there, start talking about us and this and that and this and that. Kind of gave us this image, this bully image. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, third grade, fourth grade, one of the things I used to come to school and want to give everybody chewing gum and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so the teacher told me I couldn't chew gum in class. So we all would go to the 7-Eleven down there. I used to about 20 packs of gum and come back in, and then I had gum for everybody. So teacher couldn't say nothing. She could get mad, but stuff like that, man.
So I learned when I majored in education, so I learned about this thing called a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's where what the teacher says about the class is kind of what the class lives up to, or what a person says about us is what we live up to. So in a sense, when the teacher said, these are the bad boys, she kind of gave you all the label, and everything else supported that label for you all.
Yes.
Everything else supported that label, and you all kind of lived up to it as young boys, not really knowing that that's what was happening.
Yeah, on top of that, we were there because, like I said, we out there. That was a different school. It was a county school, and we seeing kids come, lunches. Everybody got lunches and potato chips and all this good stuff in their lunch bags and stuff. I'm like, I ain't seen that before.
So your mom was still at Southern Bell at this time, or Southwestern?
Yeah, we had just started, but she moved us from the inner city to the suburbs.
Really trying to provide a better life.
Yeah. So struggling by herself. So she, at that time was 5 kids. So
yes.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, initially seeing that, eventually it changed, but on initial impact, seeing that everybody had bikes in their yard and stuff, like where we came from, it was one bike on the whole street. We all used to share the bike. So I next thing you know, I'm getting bikes and taking bikes back to my old neighborhood and just giving them away and stuff like that. I started getting in trouble for.
Yeah. Robin Hood.
Yeah, that was actually the label they gave. I used to have the reputation of a black rock because every time I came around, I had stuff, and then next thing you know, I'd be gone. Little did people know I was sent off to a juvenile center somewhere, and then pop back up, and next thing you see me, got whatever, and then be gone.
So how did you feel right in that moment when that teacher said, when she introduced you all and she said that, what did that feel like as a 7-year-old?
Oh, I feel different. Yeah, that's why I still remember that was very impacting. Just as much as in Boys Town when that man was sent to Boys Town at the age of 10. The thing that happened there, this man that put his hands on me and slapped me. I'd never forget that. I'd never forget that man's name. I'd never forget the incident. I'd never forget it. That was very impacting. So yeah.
So let's talk about that. You said in Boys Town. Now, what is Boys Town?
Boys Town of Missouri, right now, they would call it the Great Circle. It's like a DYS, Division of Youth Service ran program. But back when I was there, it was a division of family service. I think it was privately owned. Some people named the Dons owned it. But anyway, place that had like 8, 9 cottages, and each cottage had like 16 kids in there. And the kids that were there were basically there for long term, 2, 3, 4 years. And we had a house parents that each cottage had 2 sets of house parents that would alternate bi-weekly. They'll come in, the man and the wife come in, and they live in a cottage for the whole week, and then another set would come in, and they alternated every other week. So when I had first got there, that was in like 1980. This was when the courts had took me from my mother, because I had been at juvenile center at that time 22 times, and they took me from my mother, told her that she couldn't handle me. And they sent me to Boys Town, Missouri. Went up there the first day there with my DJO, this guy named Michael Williams. He dropped me off, and I was sitting there waiting on the rest of the kids to come up from, to the college. When they came up, this house parents came out, and this man named Mr. Bevord. Anyway, he told the dude to take me back there to unpack my stuff. And so when the two kids, said, "Come on," and we walked past, they spoke to him. I didn't say anything. That man, he hit me so hard, he slapped me, knocked me about 8 feet down the hallway. And that was like the first time in my life, a male ever like put their hands under my grandparents, my uncle and cousin Thomas and my brother or my grandfather. And this man, he told me, he slapped me. He's like, anytime you walk past me, you acknowledge me, you say hello, and you acknowledge me as Pa, and you call her Ma. And we had to call them Ma and Pa. And shoot, I went back there. I was like crying and stuff, went back there, and dude told me, don't, whatever they were saying. But when I got through, finished packing up, and they went back there to eat, and I was supposed to come up there, I jumped out that window and took off running. And ran through the woods and ran all the way to the highway. Had thorns in my foot and everything, but ran through the highway, and a preacher called me. And then in that town at that time, there wasn't like only one black lady stayed there who worked there, and this lady named Miss Morris, an old lady. And the preacher, he was like, where you from? And I told him I was trying to get home. He said, "Oh, you must be one of Miss Morrison's grandkids or something." So I was like, yeah. And he already knew her. He like, so when he took me, bought me something to eat, and then asked me what was going on, I told him. And I know I got them hospitals because they took me back up there, and they put me back in that cottage again. And then in the morning, woke up, I was scared they won't even look at the dude. So shoot, I took off running again. And then they called me. Then they threw me in one of their whole cottages called Neil. Then they ended up firing the house parents because they were already under like allegations for abuse. And just that incident with me just magnified it more because I took out running. Police got involved into the stuff. I was scared to go back to the place. So, the police kind of like had to get involved. And when they contacted the people, I think that situation got the people fired.
So you've always been about truth and justice. You've always, even there, you level the playing field for the children in that space. Well, thank you for sharing that with me, and how that happened. So between 7 years old and the time that you went to Boys Town, which was what, 10?
Mm-hmm.
You had been to juvenile how many times?
22.
22 times, and most of it was for you taking stuff back to St. Louis and little things like that.
Yeah, I started doing some,
Some of it was for things like that.
Now, most of it was, I learned how to, one time some guys that showed me how to skip school. I had to be like 8 years old, 7, 8, I had to be like 8 or 9, just because this is one of the things I went to Boys Town for, because I came notoriously known for going to gas stations at that time when they used to have full service gas stations. I go to a gas station and they taught me how to use my little size and age, and I would wait till the guy come out, pump gas. I kind of sneak on in and roam around inside the building or whatever, and they hit their cash registers and they snuck out before they even knew. And when first time I did it, I went and gave them the money. They gave me about $10 and kept like $100 for themselves. And came back the next day, told me, let's go do that again. No, sir, I don't need you. I just started catching the bus, I start off the morning, going to a grocery store, flipping me some bottles, give me some bus fare. And then that started being my missions, hitting gas stations and stuff. That's what I started.
So you were hanging with older guys. And and these older guys were teaching you all of these things.
Yeah, well, that thing, they taught me that right there. But when they taught me that one time,
that showed you the game.
Yeah, it was home.
Interesting. So what was going on with your mom when they came to her and said, we're going to take him? What was her response, and what was your relationship like?
She, I remember the day it happened. I remember she screamed, but I think she knew it was coming because I kept telling her she having to leave work every day. Her and her boyfriend work together. And so they driving to work. So anytime she had to leave, he had to leave. And when they started like mandating her to come to court, it started affecting her work. And then she got the household for the kids. So I became a real big sore problem to my mother. I was a real pain to her, really through the court. She used to try spanking me and stuff and whoop me. She did all. I got whoopings that words. We got ammonia pulled under the bed to come get this whipping right here. You are not hiding from this. But it was nothing that could make a difference.
And it all stemmed back to you really looking for your father.
Yeah, pretty much.
Even so how did that continue to play out? Initially that's what it was at 7, 8, 9, but as you got 10, 12, 13, how do you think it transformed? Or how did it play out in your life then? Was it still top of mind that I'm looking for my father?
No, it wasn't top of mind. How I know it was a top of mind thing, because like the first times I used to go to Juvenile as a kid, I screamed. I used to cry a lot about my grandfather and crying. Why you leave, and why, and I used to scream at God, about just whatever it was I was searching for. But I used to scream a lot about it, especially about my grandfather. I screamed a lot. Because I know he was the one that he had his hand on me, he was, and I felt alone. So I know me being in the streets was just that wandering, but that was supposed to be my father. Like I said, that attachment. Yeah. And then it turned in other ways, I guess you could say seeking for attention or whatever. That was one of the things, I guess, when I first started, like I said, when I had to go ask my mother's boyfriend, Glenn, that one time there, the awareness, I was 7. And like I said, I knew my brother and sister, okay, I know their father. And I knew my little sister father, had somebody, that came and got him or whatever. And that's what maybe compelled me to ask my mother boyfriend. He'd sit there with a smile on his face. And like, nah, I think it really touched him that I asked him that, nah, man, I ain't your father. And my oldest brother and sister, he had already let me know that he wasn't my father. So I had been asking. So yeah, it was a situation. But as other things happened, I think I grew away from that, and that didn't come relevant again until later in life, in prison, like after CMSU. That's when it really impacted me. I was very frustrated about all of that right there. That's when the father part really became, I guess you say, anger.
That's when it revealed itself again.
Yeah, because I ended up, I was in school, and you know what happened at CMSU.
Right.
But right before I had came to CMSU, I had met him for the first time, and he met him through calling his wife, and kind of made an error by contacting, giving her any information. But anyway, it led me to meeting him for the first time, and I was introduced to his whole family, and he kind of denounced me in front of the whole family, kind of at her wish. She put him on the front street. This dude here said, he called me down and said, this guy here said he your son, and we look just like twins. Mm-hmm. And but yeah, that was crazy. And then but I wasn't tripping off of it, because I was on my way to school. I had these dreams of getting my degree, trying to play football. And then when I failed, and ended up in prison. And I was like, man, all he had to do was just help me when I went to school. I probably wouldn't even been selling weed. You know, he could have helped me. He was in position. You know, young, a big old business, whatever. But anyway.
So let me ask you this: and when you, as you were in and out of detention, how many young men did you run into that was in the same situation, in a sense that you think they were looking for their father, or that void was there? That's what you all talked about.
Probably most of them. Yeah, probably most of them that were in the juvenile center coming through there.
That was looking for a father figure or did not have a father figure.
Yeah.
That was constantly in the home. Yeah. So although it was not at the top of mind, now that you look back on it, do you think that that was something that was suppressed? And even during those like 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old years, that still was that longing or that urging for that father figure?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it had a lot to do. Yeah, there was a deeper energy. Yeah. Yeah.
When you and in terms of what, as you look back on it and reflect, and I know this is in the moment, but as you reflect back on it, how do you think it began to reveal itself in other ways than from the gas station and the lunches at school? How did it continue to reveal itself in terms of looking for that father?
There was no one that could put their hand down on me. You know, it go like this too. You know how like my mama and mama's hand, I'm a male. My mama's hand, I can take. That's why I said my mama used to whoop my, she used to turn me up some worse way. But I can take her spankings because I know mama only gonna hit me so hard. But when Papa put that hand up, what you do?
Yeah.
You yield to that.
Yes. You yield to the threat of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In respect.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes. And so when that's not present and prevalent, and like I said, my great grandfather was that one that had that all kind of over me, that checking over me.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, go sit down. I go and just follow order. He was like he was actually my model. I am today a lot like him. His ways of taking me and my brother, we took a lot of his character, you know, because he spent a lot of time with us, you know, before he passed. Even though me was just a short 5 years, but my brother was 7 years older, and he had that much more time with him. But both of us have pattern ways behind him, you know. So that's what spread.
In terms of caring for the community,
right,
things like
right,
that. Yeah.
Right.
You were even trying to do that when you were taking the bikes back.
Right. And that's what he used to do.
that was part
of
that.
He came home with a gift and stuff. Every time he came home, he had something for everybody. And when he passed away, I was the one started doing it. I leave out, and every time I come back home, I got stuff for everybody. I was trying to do what he did. Yeah.
Well, you know, the most important years for brain development in children is 0 to 5 years. So you had him the most important years, and that's where you develop that compassion and that generosity and that big heart from, because you had that model to you from a man for those years.
Mm-hmm.
And having that modeled from him, and then moving to, you go to Boys Town and this man do that to you, what went through your mind when that man did that? You was like, well, look.
Oh man, I ain't gonna lie, I was terrified. I hadn't ever, and still didn't understand nothing about racism, but shoot, I was in the midst of some racist people.
So this was a white guy that did this?
Yeah. I said he was already under investigation for abuse on Black kids up at the facility. Okay, probably parents reported. But when my report hit the street to the preacher and to the police, you know, and he already under investigation, they had to instantly fire him because this little kid just got here, he ain't been here 12 hours yet. He even ran about the building. He's scared to
Twice.
death. Scared to come back up in there.
Twice, won't even walk past him.
Yeah,
So
wasn't there 24 hours from the 2 times. Yeah.
and that's just amazing that that's kind of what I mean, that's what you stand for, truth and justice. Ever since I've known you, that's what you were seeking, that's what you've stood for, equality. Even with what you were doing at Central, you were trying to level the playing field for yourself the best way that you knew how.
Right.
You know, and now that you're sharing with me that if your dad had just helped you, that you know, if you had had just a little help, that would have been some encouragement, that you may not have felt that way.
Yeah, because I was steamed up and I made that herb and I sat there and thought about it. You know, because when you make mistakes like that right there, and I'm sitting up in Warrensburg, I like, how you trip again? I'm like, man, what did you do now? I put it all the way down to, you know what, you started wanting to do that, wanting to go with them to Jeff's City, Lincoln University on the weekends, and wanting to go with your roommate up to see his brother at MU, Ernie Blackwell. You know, Emmett Staples was my roommate.
Yeah.
His brother played for Mizzou, Ernie Blackwell. Want to go up there every weekend and see him, and just doing what other people were doing, and liking everything else everybody else had going on, and not seeing what I had going on. And then, you know, I was like, okay, you know what? I want to start going having fun with them. And that's how that mistake came, along with not playing football and going to give me a job and focusing on school. Yeah, that were my two mistakes. But the one was the impression of other people and just seeing, you know, wanting to do what everybody else was doing and live what everybody else was living, and not appreciate the blessing that was bestowed upon me just being there. Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of studying around personal growth, spiritual growth, financial growth, and number of different things. And one of the things that I keep coming to is that when we get to a point in our life where we take full ownership for our decisions and where we are, and it sounds like that's what you did in that moment, that you understood that, okay, you may have been frustrated in there, but at some point you come full circle to saying, okay, I have to take ownership for all of this. And at what point did that shift happen for you?
After after that second prison term, and just realizing so coming out this time, I didn't know what I was gonna do. Coming out the first time, I had big inspirations with going to school and college football and all that. And then coming out this time, I just wanted to try to explore my poetry. I used to do the open mic poetry. That was the first thing in my writing. And then just up here working with these kids in the juvenile center. That's just everything right there. Fell off from the poetry, fell off from the writing. And it's basically just been the effort about just trying to save a kid. 22 years of that now. There's, you know, kept a part of me all the way to today, to where we sitting here talking about the past, and talking about today's current events, and the struggle that has been, that was then, that's still now, and them issues right there. So that's why we're here.
So although you say you've kind of stepped away from the poetry some, you stepped away from the writing, but you didn't step away from the children.
No. Right.
And that's that piece that your grandfather planted in you, to take care of the community.
Yes.
To always reach out and help. What would you say, what's one of the main messages that you give to the young guys that you work with now, and the ones that you know that may be struggling with, that they don't have a father around?
One thing I impress upon them, that they are the future. You know, when they be in the facility where I work, I make light of the fact of the reality of where you are at right now, and what this could potentially allude to, because they be facing this and facing that. And if the opportunity came where you are released back out, you see what's happening to people. So it's all about decision making, and making the right decision in critical times, because once you outside of the facility, you're not going to have people like myself and other people that work there around to try to encourage you at a certain times. That's when you gotta hear us when we're not around. You gotta, I mean, you know what? Let me think about that. He would say, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna let that pass and let the day live on. You know, and just try to get them to think before they react. Because many of them, the kids I see, they just instant instant firecracker. You light it, pow. There's no thinking about it. They think about it afterwards, after they've done it. They just instantly react. And they're very compulsive, you know. So
yes. So do you ever ask them about their home life, or if they have a father in their life?
Mm-hmm.
And how many of the young men you work with now that there's not a father in their life?
Maybe I've been off for the hip surgery, but during the time there, I'm gonna say if you give me a group 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Yeah.
10. Do you all
8 out
do
of 10.
anything intentional, or do you do anything intentional to help them work through that piece, that they talk about that piece, that because for some of them, by the time they are 11 and 12, like you were, by the time you were 11 and 12, at that point, you weren't still, it was not at the top of mind that you were looking for dad, but by then,
Right.
those behaviors that you started early on in looking for dad had just turned into other things. Do you all do anything with them to help unpack that?
We do. We have we use a therapeutic approach, I guess you say. It's a lot of the times the kids, it's hard to get them to talk and open up or trust, and they don't. So it acquires a lot of the individuals working there and what they are trying to get out of the kid, what they are trying to do with the kid or kids that we are working with. So kid not gonna just listen to anybody, not gonna just trust anybody. So a lot got to deal with the individuals and the heart of the individuals that are dealing with the kids that we are working with. Because a kid gonna know whether you just talking, whether you just there getting paid, whether you just there trying to pass time, or whether you're trying to help them. I was able to decipher that. So I know that they are able to decipher it. You know, give them the same strong senses that I had about what's impacting to them and compelling to them.
We have a saying that we usually say in the classroom, that they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
You care, correct.
And when you can show them that you care, and it takes a lot to break through to a child that has had have experienced trauma. And part of not having a father around is fear, and constant fear is trauma. Part of not having a father around is security.
Correct.
A male provides security. So you're in a heightened state of awareness and a heightened state of fear a great deal. So those children, I know in our last interview, you talked about, you referred to the students as your children as being delicate.
Very delicate.
And sensitive. While at the same time can be explosive about some things. How do you all deal with that duality of being delicate, but at the same time explosive?
You have to really not be sympathetic, but you have to be empathetic. You have to understand, one of the things I always recall is that I was a kid, and I made a lot of bad decisions. I made a lot of bad decisions, but I was a kid, and a lot of things they are, especially this generation, they are faced by 10 times the episodes of stuff that my generation was faced with. I sometimes tell Terry, I tell him I don't know if I could survive in this generation right here, because it's outside the household. the community, the school, the public school system, the streets. It's so overwhelming, you know, for the kids that it's sweeping them up. We see it. It's sweeping up the streets and sweeping them up. Those ones that are loose. And we all love babies. I love babies. I love kids. You know what I'm saying? But babies turn to young children, turn to young kids, then young adults, and then grown men. You know,
and carrying that trauma from each stage of child development to the next until adulthood.
And the trauma is getting so much deeper embedded in us as we continue to, you know, bring forth this younger and younger and younger to hurt. You know, yesterday, damn, Terry, elementary school, come on, man. Elementary school?
Yes, yes.
I mean, that's how deep I'm talking about. It's
Absolutely.
that low where people were stupid. That's what I'm talking about, that low.
So I want to thank you, Demetrius, for tonight. We're definitely going to have to unpack more. Thank you for sharing with me. We've talked about your early years, and we always end up back into talking about what we're doing now and what you're doing with the children, because that's your true passion.
Yes.
And I can appreciate that, because that's the work that I do. I'm always working on behalf of children. I've done that work my entire adult life. And I think that's part of what keeps bringing us back together, is that we're constantly back and forth and sharing ideas around children, and then sharing our experiences as well to encourage each other. So I want to thank you for sharing what you shared tonight. It really gave me a deeper insight on some things that I had felt about children, and it definitely gave me an insight on fatherhood and,
Yes,
and the
you.
impact and how important it is. And I also want to just say that they've done some research recently about fatherhood and Black fathers, and Black fathers are the most present fathers in the years of 0 to 5 years. We're giving more baths. We're preparing more meals and eating more meals with them, and among other things that the research found. So we are present and we are doing the work, while at the same time we know the importance of having the father there, and we understand the importance and how it impacts when they're not there. So thank you for sharing that with us, and I hope that we can take that away, and men that's hearing this right now understand the impact that their presence have on their children and their security.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Absolutely.
All right.